unlocking the potential of Nigeria are less technical, but more adaptive. So, what are the toxic mindsets that seems to have stifled the development of this nation? What are the toxic mindsets that means if we don't change those mindsets, it doesn't matter the innovation government bring, it doesn't matter the technical solution we deliver, we will not unleash our potential as a nation. Number one, complacency. Development stagnates when citizens become content with status quo and do not strive for improvement or innovation. This is exemplified by accepting poor standard rather than pushing for improvement. Nigeria is a nation of people who are complacent, massively. Some of these mindset I will skip, some I would address in greater detail. Second mindset, entitlement mentality. Entitlement mentality, a mindset in which individuals believe the government or others owe them support without personally being responsible or contributing anything. This discourages initiative and self-reliance. The amnesty program is an example, and the palliative culture in Nigeria is an example. People are entitled. You should speak to people who are from, say, Niger Delta, the way they talk about oil. You see, there are things in this country that I don't think we are ready for certain honest conversation yet. You know, in the Niger Delta, they blame a lot of things on the oil companies. Yes, they have their own culpability. But on a first-hand basis, I have documents, I've seen documents, where oil companies will earmark, I'm talking about years past, we earmark money for local amenities. The moment they bring any outsider as a contractor to deliver that local amenity, the local people will say no. They will sabotage it. So they will get a local chief or a local person and give that person the contract. They won't do it. And yet, it's the oil company that's at fault. Am I saying they have no culpability? Yes, they do. You know how much money they pay to the government that is not used for local development? How much they pay locally that is never used? All I'm simply saying is this. A lot of people who claim to have been fighting for Niger Delta are people who have enriched themselves personally. Look at all of them. All the so-called militant leaders. They are multimillionaires now. When they were fighting for our people. When they make money, it's my money. So it's time we all wake up and understand that we need to change this entitlement mentality. The third mentality, resistance to change. Resistance to change. Nigeria is a nation where people just want to do things the way they've always done it. The fact that it doesn't work is irrelevant. You know, they are resistant to change. They must do it the same way their forefathers do it. You know, you've heard the story of the woman with that wanted to cook a chicken and has a big microwave or oven at home and started breaking the leg of the chicken, broke the chicken to smaller bits before putting it inside the microwave or oven. So the young daughter looking at her said, "Mom, why are you breaking the legs of the chicken before cooking it?" The woman said, "That's the way I saw my mom do it." Luckily, the grandmother was alive. So the young girl went to meet the grandmother and said, Grandma, this is what Mom did. Why do you break the leg of the chicken before cooking it? The grandmother said, that's how I saw my mom do it. Luckily for the girl, the great-grandmother was alive. So she went to the great-grandmother and asked the same question. Then the great-grandmother said, oh, before the war, the oven we had was very tiny. The chicken couldn't fit into the oven hole. So we had to break it into pieces so that it can fit into the small oven. Now there's a big microwave that's still breaking the leg of the chicken. Talking about resistance to, exactly. It's important that's a lot of people in Nigeria are like that. And this resistance to change, the institution that embodies this the most in Nigeria today is the civil service. Well, the civil service in this country is a major stumbling block. And only those, you see, if you don't interact with them, you wouldn't understand what I'm saying. While I was working in the National Assembly, I remember after I came and I was onboarded, their tiny salary they were paying, the first salary I was paid was 6 months later. That's the first salary. So I said, what took them 6 months? Apparently, the onboarding process meant your file have to go to different departments. And the file had to go to those departments, paper file. So if you want to find out the status of your process, you have to call every department. You have to look for your file. Everything was done manually. Let me tell you one more thing. The salaries then was paid. What I mean then? We're talking of night assembly. We're not talking of 50 years ago here. The salary every month was paid by the staff taking cash to the bank every month. Okay, for those of you who have account with GT, they will carry cash in Ghana must go to GT to pay your salaries. Things you can do by transferring. They thrive in obscurity, and opacity is their key word. They make simple things complicated. Resistance to change. We are not moving ahead if we don't reform these institutions. The fourth toxic mindset, corruption tolerance. Corruption tolerance. I think it's so bad in Nigeria now that if you are not corrupt, you look like a fool. You know, in fact, you are the exception. That's how bad it is. People now just expect it. And when I mean corruption tolerance, don't just look at politicians alone. You are the security guard in a bank or anywhere. In fact, in places in Abuja, if you go out, unless you're able to tip those security guards, there's no parking space for you. And those are private establishments. Corruption tolerance. Number 5, lack of civic engagement. Lack of civic engagement. Now, this is slightly better, especially with the Gen Zs. It's a lot better. They're more engaged in the polity than they used to be. So that's an excellent point for the young people. But civic engagement also means there has to be a bit more civility to our engagement. You see, if you go online, Sometime when I want to look for trouble, I say some things online. And those of you follow me, you know they come for me all the time. I'm not bothered. Because if you disagree with my point, we can engage. But what do you see? Look at his coconut head. And he called himself a doctor. You know, there is abuse galore. That's what many of our young people know. Such that the issue at hand, nobody is talking about it. Is it right? Is it wrong? What's your view? They have no view. They just want to vent and abuse you as though you are the president. You know, I remember when the minimum wage thing was going on and Labour was asking for almost 700 and something thousand. I said, look, this thing cannot be more than between 50 and 70. Otherwise, the economy will suffer. Come, I trended for 3 days. Come and see the abuse. Rather than engage or ask me what data am I basing that prediction on, and eventually what I predicted happened. But all they were just doing was abuse. You are the problem of Nigeria. You see, the one that makes me that's very funny is that sometimes when I see some of those very bad abuses, I just out of curiosity, I go and check the profile of the person. He has 3 followers. So I'm telling myself, you know, so I don't even bother responding with your 3 followers, you know. So these are the young people that are supposed to be learning. Find out why you thinking this way. No, it's abuse. Abuse galore. And many of you online, you know that. They do that a lot. And the moment you resort to that, you disengage from discussion. You know, you disengage from discussion. Lack of civic engagement. Number 6, the 6th toxic mindset. Colonial mentality. Always preferring values and goods from foreign countries. Our import culture in Nigeria is largely due to colonial mentality. But this colonial mentality is more ingrained than you think. A few years back, I met a friend who just started a business. And within 6 months of starting that business, he told me one big contract in Nigeria. So I said, tell me the magic now. 6 months, even people who have been in the business for 5 years, they're still looking for such contract. Do you know somebody? He said, no. So what did you do? He was living in England then. So he said, this is what he did. He set up his company, used some contact to bid for the contract. So he was shortlisted to among 10 companies to come and make a presentation. He said, so he looked at his neighbor. He lived in a place called Hertfordshire, outside London. So he looked at his neighbor, he's a good friend. He said, do you want a holiday to Africa? That one said, yes. He said, okay, come with me. He said, I'm going to give you a free holiday to Nigeria. You follow me everywhere I go, but don't say a word. The neighbor, who is a taxi driver, said, who doesn't like a better thing? So he flew him to Nigeria, said, put him in an hotel, all that. So every presentation he went to make, and on the day he went to defend the bid, he took him along, introduced him as his partner. And the guy was just smiling throughout the meeting. Because technically, he doesn't know what he's there for. So by the time they finished, he got a call that he won. He said, he asked, what did you say? What did you prefer? He said, Oga said, that one that has the expatriate, that's the one we want. Colonial, exactly. So anytime you see a white man with a business, a Nigerian presenting business, query the white man. Make sure he's able to talk. For all you know, it could be his neighbor. But the point I'm making is, Nigerians prefer things that are not Nigerian, even though inferior to Nigerian. You know, there are terms, for example, that colonial mentality have made almost a crime. For example, if I tell you somebody is an herbalist, what comes to your mind? Aha, you see yourself? Is your pharmacist not an herbalist? No, it's true. I grew up with my grandparents, and my grandfather, I've not seen that illness that you will have. That he will go into the bush. He knows what bark of tree, what leaf, everything to boil together. I've not seen that malaria. It will clear. If drinking it doesn't clear it, it will make you bath with it. Those of you old enough know what I'm talking about. All your sweat, you are sweating of malaria, you know, and no Western medication. Those are herbalists. But because of colonial mentality, you will ignore that is easy and free. You are complaining that a tablet is now 50,000 naira per tablet, when you could easily get it for free. Colonial. Number 7, sectarian or tribal loyalties. Sectarian or tribal loyalties. This is a particularly big problem. We have people who believe it must be their person, regardless of his competence. I was telling somebody yesterday, I said, if a disease called the H disease, there's no such disease, I'm just using that for illustration. If there's a disease called the H disease was found in the Niger Delta today, and government set up an agency to eradicate that disease, I say, if the top 5 experts in the world, H disease are northerners, the Niger Delta people, many of them will still prefer their local person to head their agency, even though he knows nothing about the disease, than to bring a northerner who's the number 1 expert. Why? Tribal and sectarian loyalties. That's what Nigeria has become. Where when somebody is appointed to impose, it's not, let's check his pedigree. Is he competent to do it? The first thing is, which state is he from? How are we ever going to develop like that? When we don't use our best brains, but we're now using people that we know. You see, the irony of it all is this. This is the irony. Go and check all the people who have been presidents of Nigeria. There's no correlation between you being a president and your locality developing. There's no correlation at all. Go and check. Most of you remember the road to Abeokuta after Obasanjo finished 8 years as president. It was a terrible road. So what am I saying? Go to Otoke after Jonathan finished. So this idea that my own person must be the president, or must be in this position, regardless of whether he's competent or not, is a toxic mentality that we need to change. Number 8, short-term focus. Short-term focus. Many years back, I was at a seminar, and I met somebody who was then on the Nigerian Sovereign Wealth Fund. And he was talking about how they have 2, 3 or whatever $billion, in the account uninvested. So I asked him, I said, why are you having all this money uninvested? He said the problem is the government told them that they must only invest in something that will bring return within 4 years, so that the return will happen while I'm in government. You have sovereign wealth fund in countries investing in 30-year projects, 40-year projects. We are too short-term in our focus and mentality as a people. Even in our planning, it's the same thing. Short-term focus. You see one government start something, the next government will come and Reverse it. Is that not what got us into trouble with the Ogun State government? When one government signed a contract, the next one came and, regardless of the merit, canceled the contract. Now Nigeria is in trouble for it. We can't continue like this. Number 9, quickly, mediocrity mentality, mediocrity acceptance. You know, we are really in trouble when people begin to applaud governors for paying salaries. That is the height of mediocrity. Are they not supposed to pay people who have worked for them? And governors now put paying salary on time as part of their achievement. And we are accepting it. Number 10, because of time, environmental negligence. Now, this is not about the green lobby or about pro or anti-climate change. What I'm saying is this about that environmental negligence. Regardless of whether you believe human activity is causing climate change or not, it's irrelevant. We all accept that climate is changing. Therefore, we need to do something about it. And many Nigerians are not bothered about that. So what are the solutions? For that, you will have to go to my Twitter handle because I have 12 solutions and I have 2 minutes left. So I'm not going to go into that. But the entire 15-page note will be uploaded this afternoon, and you can download it there for free. But to close, this is what I want to say. I've said that Nigeria is not short of technical solutions. Both past programs and even today, they will give you a lot of technical solutions. The problem we have is what? Our mindset. We've not adapted our mindset towards development. We've not adapted our mindset toward positivity. But this is the problem. Who are responsible for this? The old people. But you know what? The young people have now been indoctrinated in the same toxic mindset. So the disease that afflicted the old is now within you. And that is the challenge we face. You cannot solve a problem with the same mentality that created it. If we say these toxic mindsets are mindsets of our adults, ask yourself as a young person, are you afflicted by those same mindsets? How have you improved on your own mindset? But I will say this, the solution starts with leadership. The leadership have to exemplify what it is they want the young people to learn. When you see my 12 solutions, you will see that the number 1 there is about leadership, about government. So I'm not absolving them of it at all. I'm merely saying we are all in this together. So there are lots of technical solutions for problems of Nigeria, but more importantly, for Nigeria to move forward, for us to achieve our potential as a nation, we all need to change our mindset and adapt our thinking towards development and prosperity of the nation. Thank you for your time.